Yo, what up? Long time no see. Finally getting to a video after a long break. Haven't really been in the mood to make a video or talk or anything, so I just haven't. I've been putting it off. I have a couple books I need to make videos about, so hopefully this will get the ball rolling again. Right now I am outside of Arcata/Eureka, California, on the northwestern coast of California, and I will be entering Oregon pretty soon. I'm parked at this random little sketchy disc golf course / kid playground, but it's all good. It's kind of Portland vibes up in here, so yeah, nice cool 55 degrees this morning, and foggy and dark and everything. Way better than the 100 degrees in the Central Valley of California. So, but yeah, just a little bit about, I guess what I've been up to. Just driving around, been seeing San Francisco and Berkeley, and checking out way too many bookstores. I never thought I'd be burned out on bookstores, but I'm kind of getting burned out, mainly because I have way too many books now. Everything's filling up, and I haven't even gotten to Oregon or Washington or Montana or any of that stuff yet. So, but there's been a lot of really good bookstores in Northern California so far, and it's been a joy to go through them. It feels like I'm walking through a bunch of mazes of books, and they actually have really good literature selections, which I don't see too often. But yeah, it's been great. I think I might do a video over like some of my favorite bookstores like that I've come across, because mainly I've seen almost every coffee shop and bookstore at every place that I've gone or tried to, are ones that actually look like worth going to at least. So and I've saved them all on my maps. So it's been quite the trip. But anyways, moving on. It's already been 2.5 minutes, and I haven't even talked about the book. But I finished this about a month ago. I should have made a video whenever I was more in that headspace, but I didn't. I just, and now I've finished a couple books, and I don't really feel like coming back to this, but I do want to make this video because it was such a impactful and big book that was definitely probably going to be on my trophy case for the books read this year, because it was quite something to tackle. But that is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. Hopefully I can say that right. And I put the sleeve on backwards last time I read this, so that's great. But I absolutely loved this copy, even though this isn't one of the more popular translations. It's the Garnett and Kopman translation, and I just loved the font and the size and like the design, and there's little pictures in here every so often. They kind of just like give you a feel of what it's like, and yeah, I just really liked the way it looked. Well, my video crashed on my iPhone for some reason, so I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to stitch two videos together, because I don't feel like saying the stuff I just said. So yeah, this book took me a while to read, and if it wasn't for the audiobook on YouTube, I probably wouldn't have gotten through it. But I flew through the first half like pretty quickly, for me anyways. I'm a slow reader, and I like to take my time, and I kind of flew through it, and then I started really working on the van and working and everything. I didn't really have time. It kind of just fell to the wayside. And then back when I was traveling around Arizona and stuff, I finally picked it back up and got through it, and I really did enjoy it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which, I mean, it really only had a couple of things that bothered me, and they were only, they were like personal things. They're not like, objectively bad. Or I just didn't really prefer like all the really long paragraphs, and that like I kind of had a, I want to say trudge, but I know that's not the right word, but or I don't even know if that's a word at all. But yeah, so I just didn't really like the long paragraphs, and I felt like the book was longer than it should have been. Every single time they talk about somebody, they use their full name, or like almost their full name, or like hardly ever, probably once every 10 times their name is mentioned, they use like the short version of it. And I listened to it so many times on the audiobook that I kept on thinking I could say these names, and then I would try to say them, and it would just come out as mesh. I don't know, like Razumihin, that's one of the characters, and then Raskolnikov is the student, is our protagonist or anti-hero that we follow along, and almost a fourth or so could have been cut out or minimized, and just a little over detailed, but that's just for me, and what I'm coming to learn. I think that's just kind of how Dostoyevsky is. So getting into a little bit about him, he's like one of the most prominent Russian writers. Most everyone has heard of him. If they haven't heard of him, they've at least heard of, Crime and Punishment, or Notes from the Underground, or Brothers Karamazov, or all the other books that he's written. But he's one of the main Russian literature writers, one of the biggest writers in the world in the history of literature. He was born in Moscow in 1821 and passed in 1881. He lived a very interesting life. He attended military engineering school, and worked as an engineer after he graduated for a while, and he translated books on the side. He published his first novel called Poor Folk, which I plan on reading. It's also a short one. I've only found it once or twice at the bookstores that I've gone around, but they're always pretty expensive, so I'm waiting to find a cheaper copy, but because it's just like a short story or novella kind of. It's not very long, but yeah, so he published that in the mid 1840s, and this helped him enter the St. Petersburg like literary group of all the the highly established literary people, and but then for that same reason he was arrested in 1849 for discussing banned books in this literary group, and was originally sentenced to death, but right at the last minute he was saved, and instead spent 4 years in a Siberian prison camp, followed by another 6 years of military service and exile. So 10-year sentence for speaking about banned books. And after he got out of exile, he worked as a journalist, picked up a really bad gambling habit, and eventually was begging for money. But then he, comes to be one of the best and most famous writers of all time. And those writings include The Gambler, so makes sense since he had a gambling habit. He probably knows what it really means and how it feels to be a gambler. Then another called The Idiot, and then, like I mentioned, The Brothers Karamazov, and he also wrote Demons, which I do plan on reading all of those, hopefully eventually in my lifetime, but I don't really plan on getting to any of those within the next year or two. I want to read Poor Folk first and then go from there, but yeah, that's just a little bit about him. And so about Crime and Punishment, what is this about, and why should you read it? I mean, there's a reason why almost everyone has heard of this book, and why it's so influential. And that's all the books I want to read, are the ones that, like, why are we still talking about it? Why do we still see it? Why do everyone, why do I always see it at every single bookstore that I go to, and what's so special about it? And a lot of it has to do with his study of psychoanalysis. I see a lot of times Dostoyevsky is paired with Freud because of this, and his study of character is just so detailed. Each one is so fleshed out. They feel like living and breathing people in a real, dirty St. Petersburg atmosphere that I believe most of his stories take place in. I could be wrong, but this one takes place in St. Petersburg, and I felt like one of my favorite things about this was the atmosphere. It reminded me a lot of like Dickens and Kafka if they were mixed together. I mean, Dickens is dark, but he also has like a light, humorous tone on top of it. But yeah, just like the darkness of Kafka, and then like the characterizations of Dickens, and like how the atmosphere really feels, and like there really feels like you're surrounded by all these people in this certain time. It really sucks you in. Like, it's one of these books that you don't want to read it quickly. You really want to take your time with it and like live and breathe that world. Mainly what this book, is about is like, I mean, obviously there's like a top layer plot that's going on, but it's also, underlying discussion of philosophy and psychoanalysis, and just like it's an intellectual conversation of like what these types of characters go through. I don't know, it's very interesting to experience. It's about the student, and his crime is him coming to the intellectual conclusion that it is morally okay to kill this woman because she, in his mind, deserves to die. And so when he starts thinking like the world is putting this into place, and all of a sudden he finds the opportunity to do it and get away with it, and he faces the consequences of that action, and he doesn't really think of his conscience. He has to fight his conscience. That's really his punishment. And his fear and paranoia of getting caught, even though he successfully, accomplished the crime. Now he's just waiting for, him to get figured out. And so it's a, case of an unreliable narrator, of descent into madness. And what my favorite thing is that like, the true insane, the people that are truly insane don't know they're insane. And it's him like unraveling this cord of kind of figuring out that he is actually the one that's insane, not everyone else. But yeah, hopefully, this is such a big book in literature that I'm sure I didn't say anything new or profound, but that's my little take on it. I don't want to ruin too much. It's definitely worth picking up and reading. But yeah, almost as good as it gets. So definitely check it out. But yeah, thanks for sticking around, and hopefully sooner than later I'll see you again. Peace.